Guys, breaking news. It looks like that Prigozhin is once again up to something, because it does not look like that Wagner is planning to stop here and just forget about everything, because reportedly right now Wagner is stockpiling weapons and planning something big. Probably by the end of July, some unpleasant surprises are expected by the Russian authorities. There's a lot of speculation about this topic right now, but there are a lot of confident signs that it most likely will happen, the armed mutiny 2.0. And to make things even worse for the Russian forces, Ukraine is about to receive a life-changing munition. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Happy Friday. And let's go straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So you already probably heard about this search in Prigozhin's residency, where a lot of money, golden bars were found, even some fake documents, and including the infamous sledgehammer. In addition to that, a personal photo album of Prigozhin was also recovered, where he was trying these new wigs, beards, trying to change his identity. Not gonna lie, looks a little bit funny. And by a little bit I mean a lot. And of course, immediately a lot of memes started appearing online, and I don't know, maybe my own personal attempt to say something funny would be: this is your face when you have been blocked by your crush, and you create new fake profiles to try to win her back. So yes, just by looking at this picture of Prigozhins from different multi-universes, can you please give me your best joke in the comments? I am really looking forward to read them. And yeah, way more pictures from Prigozhin's residency will be available on my Patreon, the link is down below. But jokes aside, we probably see some very serious things happening, because it does look like that Prigozhin is planning something, because somebody on the internet was able to track his flights, and as you can see, he is flying back and forth between Belarus, St. Petersburg, Moscow, and some other cities in Russia. I mean, definitely he would not do it without having a significant reason. It has even been reported that previously Prigozhin came back to St. Petersburg to collect his weapons, and then he rapidly vanished into other place. And in addition to that, all the seized assets of the leader of Wagner, including billions of rubles, have also been returned to him. Most likely he has a very definitive use for them in the near future. And if you remember, as a part of this deal that Prigozhin turns around his mutiny and does not attack Moscow, is that he will go to Belarus and pretty much lay low and do nothing. But once again, just confirming by these travels that he's making from time to time, he does not follow this deal. And even Lukashenko himself, he's saying, I don't know, I provided him the asylum in Belarus, and then it's up to you to control his movements. So it pretty much looks like that Lukashenko is trying to distance himself as much as possible from Prigozhin and his problems, because probably he knows something, that Yevgeny Prigozhin is definitely planning to respond, because it was so unexpectedly over his armed mutiny. Just no one could have believed that this was it. And then Putin himself, he understands that if he eliminates Prigozhin right now, it will be extremely suspicious timing, to say the least. In addition to that, Prigozhin will become a martyr for Russian opposition. And that is why Prigozhin is easily moving around right now, because he also understands that as for now, the time is on his side, because the hands of the Russian authorities are pretty much tied. And personally, I do think that the chances for escalation in the future are extremely high, because I simply do not believe that Putin just forgave Prigozhin and the rest of Wagner, even though he said that the least forgivable crime to him is the treason. And Prigozhin himself, he knows that the FSB, which is modern KGB, is after him, and pretty much as soon as the whole thing quiets down, he will be quietly eliminated. And that is why I do not think that Prigozhin is just sitting there doing nothing. In his situation, it's either he takes them down first, or he'll be facing some unfortunate consequences. The perfect description is that in case the fight is inevitable, you should strike first. And just once again, I personally believe that there will be another escalation between Prigozhin and Putin, but this time it will be much worse. This time both sides will go until the very end, and Prigozhin will be prepared way better. He will have the support of some other groups, and frankly speaking, I think this is exactly what he is doing right now, just looking for allies. And among the most obvious ones are the Russian opposition groups, such as, for example, the Freedom of Russia Legion and Russian Volunteer Corps. And the latter one even recently recorded a video where they are talking about some unpleasant surprise to the Russian authorities by the end of July this month. So just make your own conclusions. And as soon as something does happen, I will make sure to be one of the first ones on YouTube to report on these events. And if you don't want to miss them, and if you want to be the first one to know exactly what's happening, just please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And don't forget about the Russian Dude microphone giveaway, which will happen already this Saturday, July 8th. So this is pretty much your last chance to enter this competition. And if you want to participate, please make sure to follow me on Instagram and read my most recent post. The link to my Instagram is down below. But okay, and now let's talk about literally life-changing munition that Ukraine is about to receive, some other Western military support, before moving to the southern and eastern front lines and talking about even more amazing news from Bakhmut area. And first of all, as you can see from this article, the US will provide a cluster of munitions to Ukraine as a part of a new military aid package. And what makes this specific munition so life-changing for Ukraine is that one projectile then becomes hundreds of smaller ones. And one of the biggest advantages besides increasing the area of effect is that Ukraine will only need to make one launch to achieve this effect. And this specific article I was able to find on ground.news, the website which I have been personally using every single day whenever preparing for my daily news updates. This is by far the best place to receive your daily news on any topic. It literally has everything, and just take a look. Each article is pulled from many different sources. You can always follow your desired topics that you want to track, such as, for example, right here for me will be the Ukrainian war. And as soon as we open any particular article and scroll down a little bit, we can see the bias distribution. And in our case, as you can see, the majority of media that's covering this topic is center related. Scrolling even more down, you can see similar articles, their reporting preferences and factuality, so you can select the ones which you can trust the most. And speaking about the blind spots, if at any point you feel a little bit adventurous, you can always read highly left or highly right related articles to see how the other side reports on the news. And for your convenience, Ground News also has a very clean, intuitive and user-friendly mobile app for your phone or your tablet. And if you want to try Ground News for yourself or unlock all the access, please make sure to use my link in description, ground.news/Russian Dude. This is by far the best service to read your news, and like I mentioned previously, I've been personally using it every single day for the last 4 months. And most importantly, if you decide to use my link, once again ground.news/Russian Dude, this is by far one of the best ways to support the channel. Thank you so much Ground News for sponsoring this video, and now back to the program. Right, now just a couple of last words about the Western military support to Ukraine before I move to the south and the east of Ukraine. And first of all, recently Zelensky went to Czech Republic to meet with its president Petr Pavel. They briefly spoke about the current ongoing counteroffensive of Ukraine, how Czech Republic can help this country, and as a result of negotiations, Czech Republic will be providing Ukraine with helicopters and munition. The next country on Zelensky's list was Slovakia, where he talked about NATO and the possibility of Ukraine to join the alliance. But as for now, the result of negotiations is that Slovakia will be providing 16 self-propelled artillery systems called Susanna II. Alright, and now as promised, let's talk about the south of Ukraine, before moving to the east, and then talking about incredible progress of Ukrainians in Bakhmut area. And so, our first stop brings us to Crimea, where once again, traffic of those people trying to go in and out of this peninsula has skyrocketed. That is why Russian authorities decided to give one of its military ships to serve as some kind of parom, like this barge that pretty much brings vehicles to another side. Next we have a picture from Zaporozhye front lines, where Ukrainians are using already modified its artillery system called Bogdana. And moving once again to Kherson region, Ukrainians reportedly destroyed a Russian assault group with some of their armored vehicles to the north of Oleshki, exactly those people and this place where Russians are trying to prevent Ukrainians from crossing Dnipro river. Now back to Zaporozhye/Donetsk front line, where Ukrainians were able to bypass the defenses of Russians to the west of Novodonetsky and pretty much push them back behind the front lines and also establish the fire control over this road to the south, which makes the logistics of Russians along this front line a little bit more complicated. And in response to that, Russians did the only thing they do the best, which is just basically sending even more Shahid drones against Kharkov, Dnipro, Zaporozhye and Mykolaiv regions. And reportedly 12 out of 18 of these drones were intercepted by Ukrainians. And just overall, according to Anna Malyar, Ukrainians continue to advance closer to Melitopol and Berdyansk, slowly but surely, but they keep doing this. And at the same time, they're right at these front lines. They're occupying the trenches, which were abandoned by Russians whenever they were retreating, so this now became Ukrainian trenches. And so, pretty much yes. Now let's go to the east of Ukraine. And please, if you like this style of daily news reporting, can you please subscribe to my channel? It does help a lot. Thank you so much. And so our first video comes to us somewhere from the eastern front lines, where Ukrainians were assaulting these dugouts and trenches of Russians, eliminating those people inside, but then those injured Russian soldiers, Ukrainians still helped them and escorted them to safety. For obvious reasons, YouTube does not allow to show me the consequences. If you want to see the full video, please go ahead and see my Patreon, the link is down below, and there's still 1 week of free access. Next we have the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that Russians and Ukrainians were still engaged in combat activities along Svatove-Kreminna front line. And Ukrainians were able to repel a massive attack by 2 assault groups of Russians located in the southwestern forests of Kreminna. Then, according to the General Staff of Ukraine, Russians are intensifying their attacks along Liman front line, trying to recapture these lost positions. And as we move closer to Bakhmut, according to Ukrainian sources, they were able to destroy a tank and assault group of Russians in Yehidne. Going back to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Ukrainians also slowly but surely advancing closer to Bakhmut, with the majority of their forces concentrating their attacks to the south of this city, in Klishivka area. And Russians, pretty much seeing no other option, they once again started to use the chemical weapons. Most of them are prohibited by the international conventions. But nevertheless, extremely important, crucial positions were captured in Klishivka, which will allow Ukrainians in the future to launch their counteroffensive from the south of Bakhmut. But as for now, geographically they're higher than this city, that is why they're able to see what's happening inside Bakhmut pretty much in the wide open. And then, according to Serhiy Chervatый, Ukrainians were able to advance as much as 1 kilometer closer from the flanks of Bakhmut, and the initiative is still on Ukrainian side. And ultimately, speaking once again about Anna Malyar, she says that Russians remaining in Bakhmut at this point are almost trapped. And in confirmation of this, she pretty much makes the same statements what we've been talking about on this channel for the last several days, is that Ukrainians are trying to capture these significant locations, Berhivka and Yehidne to the north of Bakhmut and Klishivka to the south of Bakhmut, because after that Ukrainians will be able to advance Bakhmut from both sides, from the north and the south, and obviously from the west, leaving only one direction for Russians, to the east, to retreat. And if Russians are not retreating right now, as soon as Ukrainians will launch their counteroffensive from both flanks, the remaining soldiers will be cut out and surrounded. Even Kirill Budanov himself, he also made some statements about Bakhmut, pretty much reinforcing previously made statements, is that the counteroffensive is ongoing. It will take some time for Ukrainians to achieve success, but it will happen. After all, it took Russians approximately 10 months to just capture this single city. So now expecting Ukrainians to liberate it in a couple of weeks, it will be just a magnificent effort. But it is not impossible. And then to confirm and just once again reinforce and wrap around everything all together, then the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine itself mentioned that, don't forget people, the operational silence is still going on. We are under-reporting the success of our forces from the front lines because we do not want the Russians to access this information, so they cannot prepare accordingly to whatever we're going to do next. And so, as you can see, we're literally on the edge of some massive events happening, besides, in addition to something that Prigozhin is planning right now. We might see some massive movements in the modern history of Russia very soon, both internally and externally, and I sincerely don't want you to miss them. Just so for this reason, please subscribe to my channel, only takes one click. Thank you so much once again Ground News for sponsoring this video. Please do not forget to follow me on Instagram if you want to win my microphone. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи. Beware, there are scammers in the comments, and see you on Monday.